Hi everyone. In this video we'll set up the Piral feed service on AWS using Elastic Beanstalk. As first item we prepare everything for setting up the Beanstalk environment later on. We start by logging into the Piral container registry. This way we obtain a Docker config file which we can then later use to authenticate from inside AWS. Next, we'll write the runtime definition file, which is just a few lines of JSON. We need to reference the container source in the image property. As authentication, we reference an S3 bucket that you should have already. The referenced file will be the config.json from Docker, which we'll need to upload to the bucket. Forward port 9000 from the container to the outside. Now create a new application in the AWS console. Once created, we can add a new environment which will contain the runtime definition that we wrote earlier. Give the environment a good name and make sure to select an x86 compatible machine in the platform. Select to upload the code from a local file for providing the application. This is the JSON file containing the definition we've seen earlier. As platform, you select Docker. The specific branch and version are not relevant. They should be fairly recent though. The service role needs to be capable of reading the S3 bucket containing the config.json file. Otherwise, the credentials for obtaining the image will not be readable. Likewise, the instance profile must have the policies to manage the Beanstalk relevant EC2 actions. With everything in place, it's time to see if the service is already up and running. As we have not configured it yet, we expect the configuration to show up. For the full configuration, we'll need to add a database and storage provider. For storage, we can just use an S3 bucket. For the database, we could go with an Amazon RDS instance. Choosing a MySQL-compatible database is sufficient here. In general, many more SQL databases such as MariaDB or Postgres are supported. Configure everything as you desire following the expected workload. For our demo, a small instance with no backup is sufficient. In general, you might want to have a dedicated instance. Here we use the serverless model. Click Create Database to start provisioning the new database instance. This may take a while, but when everything is ready, we can access the instance to obtain the endpoints that we need for the configuration of the Piral feed service. Copy the endpoint and use it for the configuration. To configure the Beanstalk instance, go back to the Beanstalk page, select the created environment and go into the configuration section. Click on Edit in the Updates, Monitoring and Logging block. When all environment properties are set, click Apply. Once you saved the environment variables, the service usually restarts gracefully. If not, you might need to manually restart it. If everything was configured well, you will see the configured login screen. In our case, no provider was configured, so we just see the local authentication. As last step, let's try to add a new feed in the service to see that everything is working as expected. Congratulations, you've just set up the Piral feed service running on AWS using Elastic Beanstalk.